All right, welcome everybody. Hope we had a wonderful Pesach and great, great healthy Pesach, kosher healthy Pesach. I always say the Pesach has some unique characteristics as far as foods because they finally clean all the garbage out of the foods because it's chametz or whatever, and you get usually a cleaner product as a result of hakpada or on chametz, and all these products have like real sugar in Coca-Cola instead of corn syrup, and even non-Jews they buy the tons of Coke in this period because they know the yellow cap means real sugar and they like it more or whatever. But yeah, so it's also could be challenging depending on your digestive setup. So today we're going to discuss exciting. To me, it's always exciting to talk about this topic. This is a vast topic. It covers many different things, and I cannot even possibly fit it into one session. There's not enough room on paper to put all the notes down, but I'll try to speak out whatever I remember on the topic, because it's very important to have a full grasp of what we're going to talk about. And the topic in general I would name as imprinting. The topic of imprinting. Imprinting is the idea of growing up in a certain environment. People are born, they grow in a certain environment, eat certain foods, they have certain challenges, they have things happen to them, they can experience abuses or war, famine, and so on, and they imprint on themselves a certain behavior that is in parallel to that occurrence, or whatever the circumstances were at the time. I'm going to give you several examples straight from the Torah. I'm going to give several examples so we can set this in a more profound way, in a general sense. We just finished Pesach. Pesach is all about enactment of Yetziat Mitzrayim, of freedom. They tell us to have a full animal, unbroken animal. You cannot break the bone. It's something that has to make us feel like we're rich men, like we're gourmands, like we are not slaves. We're not slaves. We came out of slavery. First thing of coming out of slavery, you're still a slave. That night you're still a slave. Your psychology hasn't changed. Your work ethic of a slave is still there. Your muscle memory is there. If I give you a shovel, you're going to start shoveling. But what needs to transpire is the first initial psychology of a person that's trying to change his life around. There's some great thing that just occurred. Mitzrayim is defeated, and there's a certain cognitive dissonance. Like, what do I do now? Many times there's the jail riots, and they open up. They beat up the guards and open up the cells, and a lot of people will stay in the cell. It's a known thing, right? They won't leave the cell, not just because they fear punishment, extra years added onto their existing sentence, but they simply used to this. That's what they know. For the last 20 years, that's what they know. They don't know anything outside. And even if they leave the door open, many animals display that behavior when they try to let them free, and they open the thing, and then they're waiting, and the animal's not going out. Right? And they wait for an hour or whatever, because everything out there is strange and scary for the animal. And the human beings are no different as in the way that they imprint on themselves the situation they're put into. And this can be caused by many things. So in Mitzrayim, we're trying to transform. Moshe Rabbeinu comes and tells us, okay, you're free, you're children of Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. God remembers you, you're coming out, and they still can't fathom what's going on. And they have to act it out. So Moshe Rabbeinu tells them on that night, you're going to sit in your homes, you're going to put the blood on the doorposts. Motnechem chagurim, na'alechem beraglechem, your loins, you gird your loins, you put shoes on your feet, maklachem biyadechem, you put staff in your hand, and you're going to eat like rich men, you're going to eat like owners and not slaves. And you have to display that. You can't feel it, you don't know what it means, but you have to display it, you have to act it. Many communities have that reenactment. They come out Mitzrayim, they're carrying something, and they ask each other questions, where you're coming from Mitzrayim, where you're going to Yerushalayim, and so on. This is reenactment. And we, today, imprint that onto our children at the Seder, right? We say that. We list things. We list makot, we ask questions. We say that the son that's Rasha wouldn't come out because he puts himself outside of the community and he's not participating. And all of that imprints on the child, and the chinuch becomes the primary in the Passover message, becomes the prime directive. We have to educate children. I heard from Yitzhak Zilber, who was a Russian Rav, I heard when he was in the Gulag, Pesach was coming, and they bribed one of the guards to get a little bit of flour to make some matzah. And the amount of flour that came was enough for like 3 little kezites of matzah. And the question was, who's going to eat this matzah? They're all hungry, they're all devastated, they're all a lot of religious Jews that wanted to be Mekayim mitzvah of matzah. And the Rabbi Zilber was there, who was skinny like anything. They said when the wind was blowing, because he kept kashrut in Gulag, and he would move with the wind. And all these hungry people, and they turn to him and they say, who should be Mekayim this great mitzvah, that we have opportunity? We have these 3 little matzahs. And he said, we're going to give it to children. We're going to sit the children around, and they're going to eat a little bit of matzah. Because the whole point, when it all boils down to educating children in what it is, imprinting them was this new hope. Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim, that you're a free man. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but you're going to be there. Right? And that's what carried us in the Galut for many, many years. And that's one of the major imprintings. The whole Torah, Avraham Avinu was the covenant, was the Brit Milah. It's an imprinting. It's a brit that you put in our flesh, right? And we do this. I just had my grandson's brit, and it's an inspirational thing, and it's a continuity that we achieve through our children and grandchildren, right? And all of these things that represent a certain change, and now you're different, they're imprinted. Whether it's a brit bein habetarim that Avraham Avinu had to do, whether it's a promise to Yitzhak and the sacrifices that they made, whether it's a promise to Yaakov and so on. Just to strike a difference, you see that Esav comes and Yaakov wants to get the Bechorah from the Esav, and their covenant is not strange. Their covenant is of a porridge of lentils. There's no meat, there's no korban, there's no important things. Avram did it with flesh, because we talk about life. Life is in the flesh of animals, of birds, of human beings, right? And by parsing those carcasses of animals and walking through them, Avram is making a covenant with entire nature, entire world that God has created and has given over. Now you're different, and now you're Ever and Nahar, you're a different person. But we'll see the Esav, it sells a Bechorah over a porridge. It's not real meat, not real protein, at least, right? There's some protein there, but it's not, right? So you see that it's incomplete. Somebody can argue that maybe that's not a good covenant, and he goes back after Yaakov pursues him and wants to, there's a whole, it's incomplete covenant, so to speak, right? So we want to make sure that whatever we experience in life, it has a right imprinting. In fact, the entire educational system, or the parents raising children, they want to guard them from harm, right? And even it's not a physical harm, it's a psychological harm. We very much feel that our children should not be exposed to wrong things that they can see, hear, smell, I don't know, anything that can come to their 5 senses should be imprinted correctly, right? We choose who they can be with. We're very careful, in most cases, we're very careful what strangers they interact with, which family members they interact with, what friends they have, what influences these friends have on them, and so on. It all goes to the mindset that people develop. Our mindsets are developed from rich experiences that we had in our life, low points and the high points in our life, whatever they might be, and we learn, right? All failures teach us something, and eventually we become who we become. And then we interact, and then we try to imprint ourselves on others, and the other people imprint themselves on us. So Rambam starts off, I picked this part in the Mishnah Torah in Hilchot Deot. יש בין כל דעה ודעה הרחוקה ממנו בקצה האחר דעות בינוניות זו רחוקה מזו. Every virtue, every character that's in the person is different from person to person, and sometimes the distances are great. Sometimes they're closely, connected. Sometimes they're great. That's why people kind of assemble themselves into tribes, into dwellers of the same city, because they understand that for them, for their virtues, for their character, it's most suitable. I like hot weather, you like cold weather, you like seasons, I like Florida. These are all something that speaks to our character. Many times people, they're acclimating. There's a concept of acclimating, right? You move to some place, you think you have a new job or whatever, and you can't acclimate to the place. Everything bothers you. Mosquitoes bother you, wind bothers you, whatever. You can't. Your body, your nature is not made for this place. The water is not right. You take a shower, it's too hard or too soft or whatever, and you can't get used to it. And person can't acclimate. Most cases you'll acclimate. They'll go climb Machu Picchu. It takes 3 days to acclimate. They'll stop on some point, then they'll go down, then go back up, then they'll go down again, go back up until your lungs can now breathe that very discharged air. There's not much oxygen there. Normally you have 21%, it could be 18% there. Like it doesn't meet a OSHA standards, You have about 18% oxygen. So people like Sherpas that live in the Himalayas, they have a vast cardiovascular system that allows them to breathe less oxygen. People in mountains of Georgia or whatever, they breathe less oxygen and therefore a lot more fitted for high altitudes. Me and you that we live in the sea level, we go a little bit. I go upstate New York, all of a sudden climbing a hill is not the same as for the local, right? So, and that's it's imprinted from the childhood, where we were raised, location, food, environment, people, challenges. I got wet in the rain, I got sunburned, and so on. These are all experiences that build our body, our physique, our psyche, and also our spirituality, right? So it's a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual experience that we encompass in ourselves. So the Rambam here says, in the underline here, Kol hadeot, yesh behem deot shehem da'adam mitchilat briyato. There are some deot that person inherits, they're pre-existing from the beginning of when he was born. Lifi teva gufo, according to the nature of his body, or his mother, or his father, or whatever, or what prenatally the mother ate or didn't eat, or what kind of pregnancy she had, how did she deliver the child, was it a complicated delivery, did they use forceps and the messed up cervical spine of the child, or was it a calm, nice home delivery, that child is calm and doesn't scream at night, right? So all of that impacts the child, the mother, people around, plays on everybody's nerves, right? Postpartum depression is a serious thing. A lot of mothers have done terrible things facing the postpartum depression, right? Why? Because they didn't have enough nutrients going in. They didn't have enough nerve supply and emotional strength in order to handle, like I mentioned last time, you have 2 years that you're going on a journey of 2 years, right? 9 months of pregnancy, and then another year and a half or 2 years while mother is nursing, taking care of everything, juggling other things, other children, and all of that can weigh in. And if the person doesn't have enough resources, right, it can crack. People crack. And particularly if you have a demands of the religious community, like a Haredim in Israel or whatever, every year you gotta make another child, right? Can they handle it? No one's asking. When I started questioning, is that okay? They said you have to go get a heter from a rabbi. And I was like, how does the rabbi know what my wife needs? I mean, she might have any number of needs, and to say that woman should be giving birth every year. So that goes into other questions like contraceptions and other things, which is not an easy topic. Maybe we'll touch on it at some point, but right now I want to focus on this idea that everybody has their own nature. The Rambam says, "Ve'esh mehem deot shetivo shel adam ze mechuvan ve'atid lekabel otam bimhera." There are some people that have a certain alignment in their character that once you expose them to something, they accept it, they soak it up like a sponge, right? They made for it, right? You go to Africa, you know those videos, African kids are dancing. I'm amazed that they're like monkeys. They're running around dancing at age 5. They're making moves that the professional dancers can do, and it's natural to them because they grow up in that environment. Their protein structures, their muscles, their sinews, everything is made in a way to facilitate that kind of activity. And they can climb a palm tree and get you a coconut at age 10, where you have to send a white child for gymnastics for 10 years to do the same thing, right? Why? Because their nature soaks it up. They grow up with the ground, they ground it. They're barefoot, they're grounded, they're in touch with the nature around them, and their body facilitates all of it. They are rooted in their land. So they will accept this environment more than other people. Somebody moves in to that country, he may not be able to sustain it. A lot of Europeans move to South Africa. They're not any more Africans than their European counterparts who left in Holland. They speak Afrikaans. That's it. They don't climb trees, and they don't. They have some adaptations, but they don't even change skin color. There's nothing. By the way, flies in the face of the whole anthropology that says that blacks are black because of exposure to sun and melanin in the skin. And no, you have generations already white people living in Africa that did not change a shade. They're as white as the predecessors, as long as they don't mix race. Goes to the Ham being born, turning black in the favor, all of a sudden becomes a lot more plausible that's the case, is because the anthropology has really failed on that. But that's what we have. We have different natures, and people respond to different triggers, right? What makes me happy is a good sun and good outdoors, and some people like to curl up with a book and read because that's what they are. They grew up in Scandinavia. There's not much to do outside, and they know that they need to hibernate in the winter. They're not used to all year-round sun. And in fact, by the way, from the health standpoint, it's another fallacy that they teach you, don't expose yourself to sun because of the skin cancer. Skin cancers primarily occur in the northern countries, and in the parts of the body that are not even exposed to the sun. So it's a metabolic disease. Has nothing to do with the sun. Sun is curative, and the least occurrences of skin cancer are in Caribbean and other parts where they have a very nice protection of melanin in the skin. But these are adaptations, right? So these are things that we know innately, a priori knowledge, so to speak, that certain things are good for us and certain things are bad for us. We don't need to have double-blind studies for everything to know whether it's good or bad. We sense it with our being. And that's what informs us. By the way, when you walk into a room, you look at the people, or you look at the environment, and you immediately identify what the situation is. You don't need to know a lot of things in order to know whether it's a safe place, these are good people, you belong here, you don't belong here, and so on. Avicenna says that you look at the cup of honey and you don't even touch it, you don't taste it, but you know it's sweet and it's viscous. How? Just by looking at it, right? We already know that this liquid is not a regular liquid, right? It's honey, it's viscous, and it's probably sweet, right? And we know that from our insides because we have experiences, we've seen such syrups and fruit juices and other things that we can compare and come up with something, right? All right. This is a picture here on the bottom. You can find a video on YouTube. There's an actual kid walks around the streets with the ducks following him. There's a row of ducks, and you can look it up. It's a video on YouTube. And what happens is in the poultry world, when chicks or ducks, they hatch, whatever is standing in front of them at the moment, and every farmer knows that, if it's their mother, they're going to follow their mother. If it's a Farmer Bill, they're going to follow Farmer Bill or his boot or whatever is there. And it's a method of control. Many farmers will do that because large farms, there's no mother, father, whatever. The farmer is their mother, and wherever he goes, they all follow, literally. It's an easy way to transport the birds from one area to another. And this guy just walks around with the ducks following him, right? That's called imprinting. Imprinting is what I see first, I consider that my mother or my caretaker. Yeah. Now imagine a human child, right? Nazis they did terrible experiments with children. They tried to see endurance of a child, just like they did with human beings, experimentations on twins and so on. And they had ones with infants, where infants were not picked up. They were fed, but they were not picked up. They were not rocked. They were not hugged. They were not kissed, and many succumbed to crying and that stressor. Not being cared for. There's no mother around, and these are some of the cruelties that but show us the boundaries of the human existence. A child needs to imprint onto his mother immediately after birth. Proper places that midwives. Hospitals are usually terrible in this regard. I've seen it firsthand. They got better with the birthing rooms as opposed to ORs. My first son was born in OR. I had to scrub in. But others were born in the birthing room, so it's a little bit better environment. But they still don't understand, or they forgot, or they washed out of all the medical students this idea that the child has to be attached to his mother. When the child comes out, first thing they used to do is put the child on the mother, skin to skin. Yeah. Child has to smell the mother, smell the areola of the breast, smell the first colostrum that's coming out, and it's very important. It should nurse right away. Colostrum is very protective for a child. They should let the nurse, and umbilical cord should not be cut immediately. A lot of blood from umbilical cord is still draining after birth. Until placenta separates, there should not be any cutting of the umbilical cord. And many people don't know that, and they think it's a ribbon cutting. The doctors make the thing, oh, we're going to cut the thing, and the father, would you like to do honors? And they hand him scissors, and he's so happy to cut it. No, leave it alone. The nature has its ways. When placenta detaches, it means nature says, I no longer want to be connected to this. We're done, and placenta detaches. But placenta didn't detach. What gives you a right to get involved? I recently heard one of the rabbis speak about inducing. It's a very wrong thing that a lot of women do to fit into whatever schedule. They don't want to be giving birth, during Pesach or during whatever, and they want to give birth before. So they go to the doctor and says, "Can you induce?" Right? Doctor takes a spike from a bike wheel. That's what they use. That's actually what they use. They break the water and they starts the birthing process. They give drugs, pitocin, and other terrible things, and the child is pushed out against his or her will to the world. Why? Because mother wants to have the comfort. I'm done. I've had enough. I don't want to. And many people have done it. It's a normal thing. And yes, argument is that why should the woman be in pain for too long or not get an epidural? And men obviously don't have a lot of credentials to speak on what it feels like to give birth, but side effects are there, and sometimes these side effects will make mother not feel the full birth, have problems with the back later if the person wasn't professional in administering epidural, and these things imprint on the mother and on the child. Pitocin for sure imprints on the child. Heart rate goes up. It's a stressful experience. A lot of chiropractors I know, the pediatric chiropractors, they deal with aftermath of a stressful birth for children. Their neck locks up, children can't turn the head from one side to another, or they keep the head on one side and head squishes, then they have to wear a helmet. There are children wearing helmets today because they can't turn their head. They put it on a pillow on one side, the head is soft, it goes flat on one side. Doctor says, we've got to put helmet on, the special helmet. Right? Now try taking that child for a walk to the park, and people not assume anything. Right? All of that imprints on everyone. Right? It's a certain shame, embarrassment, and so on. So we have this occurrence in many cultures. Culture, family, home, they decide a lot. And if a person has a proper home and proper environment, proper community, all of that comes to help the child grow. He gets good treatment at home. He goes out, everybody is there, uncle and aunt, and grandpa, grandma, and so on. I grew up this way. Back in Soviet Union, there was no such thing. Don't talk to strangers. We spoke to everyone. If you got lost, a stranger brought you home. They tell me I used to run away from my yard if the gates were not locked, and I would just take off and go down the street. And some grandma would pick me up and says, "Where are you running?" And she would be nice and give me a candy or whatever, and retrace my steps. And my terrified mother was running in the opposite direction and saying, "Have you seen the child?" And this was fine. We trusted strangers because the society was set up this way. Punishment was great. If anybody abused or touched the child, they probably wouldn't survive, right? Because there would be a cultural outcry for anybody that does anything improper. Here, they teach children from the early age, don't talk to strangers, don't talk to anybody. It's a terrible thing. Why shouldn't my child trust an adult, right? But he can't because they're sick. There are a lot of sick people walking around. So, and that imprints us. That makes us feel that there's a danger around the corner. It's not safe. We always have to be watching. A moment child doesn't pick up the phone today, everybody goes into panic mode. What happened? Where is he? What? This is already described. Gustave Le Bon is one of my favorite psychologists, and he wrote a famous book called Crowd, where he argues that the bigger the crowd, stupider the people get. And it's true. You look at any of the demonstrations in the free Palestine or whatever, you see how dumb people get. And also they absolve themselves on any responsibility, beating up people or smashing windows in the stores. They surrender their intellectual and their morality to the crowd. Everybody was doing it, so I was doing it. That's the psychology of the crowd. So he famously said, people are governed by their character, and all institutions which are not intimately modeled on that character merely represent the borrowed garment, which is a transient disguise. It's so true. We send our children to school that does not cater to their character. It caters to whatever the direction the school decides to take, and everybody has to fall in. And because your child is 7 years old, he has to sit in the classroom with other 7-year-olds. What sense does that make, right? My child could be brilliant, and and the teacher is teaching to the bottom of the class, or if you're lucky, to the middle of the class, definitely not to the top of the class, and then becomes a very obscure place for a child to be. Child is under arrest, is in jail. He has to sit there 45 minutes with some breaks. He takes the same bus that serves jail, right? The same structure is there. Poor food, poor ventilation, poor treatment. You're part of the group. You don't have your own personal say in things, and that's a form of abuse, and that imprints on the child. And children grow up hating school, hating whatever subject, because the teacher was terrible. They got mistreated, and eventually they become a person they were not destined to become. Because they had a bad experience, they never looked into certain careers or into educating themselves further. And they said, I'll be what I'll be because here I can have control. There, I don't think I can have control because my teacher used to smack me or do something or whatever. We got hit. I remember in the Russian schools they used to hit with a ruler, right? Boys got hit on the tips of the fingers like this, and girls got hit on top. Persian kids tell me that in Iran they used to hit them with a piece of hose, like they would cut the hose like a rubber hose, and the teacher, they would have an oven or whatever to heat up the room, and the teacher would warm up the hose on top of the thing just to make sure it's flexible enough, and everybody got hit just for anything. But that was a system that for right or wrong, that was a system. It taught some respect, but at the same time, you don't see a great thinkers coming out of that system because they are limited and constricted, and it's like a slave mentality. You always listen to someone older than you. You know, cultures like this all the time. Chinese culture is like that. Indian culture is like that. You talking to Indian designer, and he wants to talk to his manager at all times. I'll tell my manager, no, but you understand what I'm telling you. We've been through this, right? But I'm telling you, you can do it. No, I got to talk to my manager, right? Why? Because it's a hierarchy. It's the caste system, right? He comes from the lower caste. He has to talk to the Brahmin or whoever in a high caste. Outcomes of these as follows. So we'll talk about proper upbringing. That's your nursing mother on the right. Improper upbringing is the soldier. In this case, it's a Mamluk soldier. So if you see in the bold line, so the history of Mamluks, it goes back. The many nations have this idea of Mamluch or Mamluk. Italians have it as a curse. You're Mamaluk. Yeah, there's a Mamaluk. Why? It's an equivalent of Mamzer, calling somebody a Mamzer. But not exactly. But the Mamaluk were heartless warriors, elite warriors, who could kill without mercy. They were primarily, 90% of them were collected in the country of Georgia, as a historical fact. They were orphaned children. They were collected by Turks, and they were trained as an elite army from the young age, displaying all cruelty that's possible. They made them kill animals, to fight with other people. They made them murder at young age in order for them to be completely desensitized to any feelings of human connection. Mamelukes destroyed Yerushalayim, one of the hordes of the armies that came, and they'll show you today by the Kotel, when you're walking down, biggest stones that were uprooted and brought down to the bottom of the Kotel that you see under the glass over there, they were done by Mamelukes. They were the strongest elite army. They formed their country, but it was not long-lived because they were raised on cruelty. Socrates discusses this, that Spartans didn't have much future because they raised their children on cruelty, out of cruelty. They raised warriors and they could win wars, but they didn't know what to do with themselves as a culture, right? Because culture was a warrior culture. So warrior cultures go away. But you see the imprinting of a child that has a mother that raised them versus the child was torn away as an orphan and raised differently with all kinds of abuses. And that person is very hard to fix, right? Serial killers in American history, all these Ted Bundys of the world, right? They formed at some point because of the experience, because of the neurological, physiological, psychological impact, and they became what they became because they responded to triggers in life in a certain way. When somebody upset them, they didn't just react normally, they plotted to kill them, right? They found another way of operating, which to them was right. So all these sociopaths and psychopaths that are formed due to wrong upbringing is the price that we all have to pay going out there. There was a recent shooting now, and was in Pennsylvania. The guy killed his own children, like 6, 7 children of his own, and other. It's crazy. It's unnatural. Laws of nature don't apply here because a parent that takes the child's life, there's nothing to talk about, right? Rambam continues in a different vein. Continues and says, "Derech briato shel adam," based on this in our society. Derech briato shel adam, the way the person is born is modus operandi of the person. Liot nimshach bedeotav u'ma'asav achar re'av v'chaverav. Person wants to have people close to him, friends, right, family, acquaintances. V'nohek minhag anshe medinato, and usually is going to act in accordance with the minhag of that country. You're born in Yemen, you're gonna smoke hookah and have a big crooked knife in your belt. You're born in in Russia, you're gonna drink vodka, and right? Not because it's yours necessarily, but you act accustomed to act this way. What do you mean? I grew up and they handed me a cup of wine and said, "You're Georgian, you gotta make a toast and drink." I'll tell you a secret. It's being recorded. I'll tell you a secret. I don't like doing that. I don't like drinking a lot of wine. I like wine, I'm saying a glass of wine, but I absolutely, despise this idea of sitting and downing 3 liters, 4 liters of wine like I experienced. I imprinted to negative from the drinking that I experienced. My uncles, my family, they're all sitting at the table, and you can't get up. You're sitting for 3 hours drinking. There's not much entertainment. People are saying, yes, beautiful poetry, beautiful words, wonderful, right? But let me go. It's not mine. It's not mine. Yeah? I wanted to do other things. Then I did other things. I went and I did swimming and I did the art and I did other things. Sometimes my parents happen to be, understanding of this, and they raised me as a wunderkind, whatever, try this and try that, and whatever sticks, then it's a very good system. A wunderkind system, very good system, right? You let the child try several things, take him to few groups, see if he's good at chess, see if he's good at whatever, and whatever sticks, then he's going to stay with him. So now I don't swim much because I don't find myself in the pool, but I'm very confident, if I find myself in the water, I can swim because they gave it to me. I do art. Sometimes muse doesn't come to me, she stays away. She stays away for a couple of years sometimes. I can't draw, I can't paint anything because I don't have that inspiration. But if push comes to shove, my grandchildren ask me to draw something, I can confidently draw something, right? So these are things that I acquire, but because I'm imprinted, these things imprinted on me to a certain degree, I use them to a certain degree. It means they go all the way. Apparently I like this stuff. And I do more of this stuff now. They didn't teach me guitar when I was growing up because I was going to art school. So I went, when I already got married, then I bought myself a guitar and taught myself how to play guitar because I always wanted to play guitar. Am I a Paco de Lucia? No. But I enjoy the process, right? So that satisfies me to that degree. So that's my nature. So we sit together, we imprint on each other. That's called friendship. That's called community. That's called kihila, whatever you want to call. We tolerate each other, in fact, right? Leon, you know that, right?
Yeah.
We tolerate each other, right? We have our own things. We want to say something, and sometimes, because there's, it's not my place or whatever, we'll hold it. But when opportunity comes, then others, need my advice or my whatever, my information, I'll say it and I'll contribute. So that is important because it's shared in the community. It's good to have the experience even if we don't like it. If I have a friction or I have good vibes or whatever, all of that stays with me and I know who to talk to, not to talk to, how much time to spend with each and every person, how long do I want to stay in shul. I don't like to stay long in shul. Some people love it. They stay after davening, they never go home. And I don't like to stay long, right? So to each his own. So I will pick the minyan that's faster, and somebody will sit in the minyan that's 3 hours, right? That's imprinting. He sat next to his father singing mizmorim and doing whatever, and it flowed with him. It was good. It was natural and organic for him. And some people don't have it. I like certain amount of, singing or whatever, but it takes too long. I'm running to the library and I'm picking up a book and I'm studying. I can't, right? So everybody has their psyche and their abilities, right? So Carl Jung, my favorite, way better than Sigmund Freud, that pervert. Today you would put him in jail for what he did to his patients. Literally,
for sure.
Carl Jung is a Hasidim Olam considered compared to his own teacher. Freud was his teacher, and he separated from him, thank God, and developed his own psychology, which is a lot more godly and a lot more spiritually informed psychology, which is very helpful to anybody who wants to look into it. So he says he has a concept of collective unconscious. People are walking around with a certain collective unconscious. What is that? You've seen those people, right? We call them zombies or NPCs. You know what NPC is? NPC? What is NPC? Dan, what is NPC then?
It's like a character in a
non-playing character.
Yeah,
when you play a game and there's a guy walking up and down the street and you can't interact with that, that's called non-playing character.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like that. They're walking up and down, they never say hello, or they say but the same thing every day. There's almost like there's no complexity to that person, right?
Or like one-dimensional.
Right, one-dimensional, exactly. And we see a lot of people. Well, it could be drugs, could be they live in a different realm of our matrix. But be as it may, there's a collective unconscious concept. Some people just go with the flow. They go with what everybody says. For instance, fly in the room, is not a good thing. Yes, you would agree? Most people will chase that fly, and until it's dead, they won't let go, right? But if it's a ladybug, no, right? We eat all animals, and somehow we stopped at dogs and cats. We don't eat dogs and cats, unless it's China or whatever, right? So there are certain things that they give us. That's also imprinting, right? Where did it come from? From school, from from my friends, from people talking about it, right? Oh, this is terrible. Don't ever eat this or eat this. People have all kinds of myth about, I don't know, milk, certain foods. Some consider it good and culturally. Let's say Russians will have caviar and other foods, and Americans will simply don't understand what it is. Like, how do I eat it? I know it's expensive, but I don't know what to do with it, right? Why? It was not imprinted, right? Even though it's same proteins, sugars, carbs, and
Interests, oysters.
right. But some people have a wide palate. I have a wide palate. I'm not going to eat non-kosher stuff, but I have a wide palate when it comes to different foods. I'll try things, right? I have friends who have even wider palate, and whatever you put, it looks like a jelly, disgusting thing, and they'll say, "I'll try it," and they'll put it in their mouth, or whatever. And I can't. At some point, I have that gag reflex, and I can't. But there are people. Same goes for the understanding of anything, people's nature, bridging the gaps, attitudes. Right? I'm good with a lot of people. Different cultures. I have like 10 cultures in me, and each one comes out whenever I meet the person. Russian, Bukharian, Georgian, American, Yeshivish, Haredi, Hasidish. I go to Satmar. I have friends in Kriyas Yoel. How many of you have friends in Kriyas Yoel? Yeah, Monroe, New York. You go up there, nobody looks like me, right? So, but I go there because I have friends. I have some, they speak Russian, they're Russian friends, right? And it took some time, but now I'm like a OG. I can go there and feel comfortable and confident, right? And that comes with allowing yourself to imprint, right? Imprint them on you, you imprint on them, and becomes a little bit of a fusion. And they don't mind you so much. Like, my wife actually drives there. The women don't drive there, right? But you can get in the car and drive, and they say, okay, it's a guest, it's okay, whatever, right? For their own, they won't tolerate it, right? But because I fused, they say, okay, it's a give and take, right? He comes, he respects us, we should respect him, right? And that happens in relationships, husband-wife relationship, whatever relationship might be. So, taking people out of collective unconscious and making them individuals is the goal. Meaning, taking a child and say, I want you to understand what you are trying, what you're imprinting on yourself. You and your friends went somewhere and you tried something. They tried a cigarette, I don't know, right? So cigarette imprints, right? First time anybody tried smoking, it imprints. You get nauseous, whatever. I heard a story, there was like a tradition, if young kid asked the older brother, can I try a cigarette or whatever, he thinks it's cool. The older brother would say, yeah, sure. But first, he says, you have to get a taste for it, to take the tobacco out of a cigarette, make it into a ball, says you have to chew it and swallow it. And then you'll get introduction to it. And a child chews, swallows, and then throwing up for the next 2 days because he can't, nobody eats tobacco, right? So and then he has this bad feeling about it, and hopefully not gonna smoke. Sometimes it backfires. The joke is that they told mother, it says, put a little cognac into your milk, and your child will grow up hating cognac, and the child grew up hating cows and milk, right? So it doesn't always fire in the correct direction, right? So he said, while imprinting is a more immediate personal phenomenon, Jung would argue that what we imprint on taps into the vast universal reservoir of meaning, symbols from early caregivers, rituals, and even sacred stuff that we experience, right? If you were brought up in a certain community with certain mores, know what mores are, right? It has a certain vibe. Then you imprint from that. I know people from the Carlebach communities, kibbutzim in Israel, in Carlebach. Like you, Shlomo Carlebach is walking live in them, in these people. They're like a frizzy hair, and they have the guitar, and they're all spiritual, right? And they were born there, and they imprinted on this. And I know Shlomo Carlebach from 1980s, 82, when he gave a concert. I still have his tapes, And he created a direction in Judaism and a direction in the dating sites. It says, "What are you, Orthodox?" There's that Karlbach. There's a category. I'm a Karlbach. What does it mean? I sing Erev Shabbat. I sing. I have a good time. I have a certain attitude towards life. I'll hug my fellow Jews all the time. Right? It's a direction. It's imprinting. Right? And you meet somebody like that, and you have a friend like that has that character. You have a choice to make. Or you're going to flow with it, or you're going to reject it. If you're going to reject it, create a distance. If you embrace it a little bit, you'll get a feel for it, and then have something to share. It was a father of graphic design, was Milton Glaser. He created "I Love New York" T-shirt. The logo. Was a heart. "I Love New York." That's him. And he created many wonderful things, and he did it by hand. He didn't have a computer. And he said famously that if I like Mozart and you like Mozart, chances of us killing each other have diminished considerably, right? That we have something to share, we have imprinted on one another, at least in one category of things that we like, a food we like or something, then all of a sudden we become fused in some way. And therefore, I'm not going to be so quick. If I speak your language, right? How many times, if you're a little bit of a polyglot, so I'll speak 4 languages, then somebody walks in the elevator and I say a couple of words, that person's not going to mind many things that I might display otherwise, right? Most beautiful person that you ever encounter is a person who just saved your life. Isn't that the most beautiful person? He saved my life. Could be ugly as anything, right? But he saved your life. So you owe him something. So your whole nature now turns towards positive of that person, right? You're vibrating differently. So, University of South Carolina said, performance characteristics are qualities, traits, or individual characteristics that are required for satisfactory performance in a particular job, role, or team. And there's a chart here on the bottom. And the entire life that we live, whether it's family life or at work or in society at large, is performance-based, right? We fall in a certain category of performance. Now you have a bell curve, classic bell curve, and you can have, poor performance, good performance, average performance, and all of that is created by how we were brought up. There's certain expectation of a New Yorker that is not expected of a person from Kansas. Would you agree? And a New Yorker wouldn't know what to do in flyover country, with the cattle. Wouldn't know what to do, right? I experienced it many times. I traveled to Texas, I traveled to Arizona, and I see different people. They're different people. Their attitudes are different, right? In New York, you drive fast because you need to get somewhere, because there's money to be made. Time is money. In Texas, there's 12 lanes on the highway, and everybody drives at 75 miles an hour with their pickup trucks, and they beep you if you don't get out of the way. And when I landed in the cigar lounge, I asked, "Why do you guys? You're crazy. Where are you running at 75 miles an hour?" They said, "When you're in front of me and you're not going fast enough, you are taking away my freedom of movement. The way I look at it is you're stopping me from being free." It's not New York. We hate New York. We don't run anywhere. In fact, for a job or meeting, we don't rush. We not gung-ho on locking on that target like New Yorkers are. But we want to be free, and some people take their time. So different natures. And you have a choice always to make, whether you flow with that or you're an antagonist to that, right? And that also will determine whether you will acclimate to that environment, to that community or not. Don't buy a house or rent an apartment before you've been to the community, before you've breathed the air, before you lived change a couple of seasons in the place. How do you know you're going to like it, right? Even with people, they say date a girl for at least a couple of weeks. You don't know what person shows up after 2 weeks, right? Yavin, right? So all of that goes to enrich our understanding and the quality of life as a result. So when it comes to children, I put the Yemenite children here. It's very cute. me and my son were in Yerushalayim. We lived in the old city, in the Rova Yehudit, right in the center. But go down the steps, the Kotel is there, and there, on the weekday we have nothing to do with tourists, so we're walking around, and the cheders were open. They have this like open door policy with the cheders, like you walk around the whole city, and you hear children screaming psukim in the Torah, repeating over and over again. You don't see this in American yeshivas. American yeshivas they don't have Hebrew language, they don't have learning by heart, anything. So children there are constantly reviewing the thing, and I put my son by the door and said, listen to this. You have to imprint from this. You have to remember this, that there are children that know entire Torah by the time they're 7 years old, they know entire Chumash by heart. And it's happening today. In Yerushalayim, there are schools that will, one pasuk after another, they will review and they review until they know. I know many Rabbanim, Rabbi Rebbe Chaim, you give him a pasuk and he finishes any pasuk you want. In Tanakh, he finishes it. Right? Why? Because at the early age it was imprinted. Right? Many said, Aristotle famously said, give me a child before 7 years of age and I'll tell you what kind of man he's going to be. I'll educate him. In fact, every society, communists, capitalists, whatever, they try to capture a child at the early educational stage where they can brainwash them to be whatever that society wants them to be. Right? And then takes a lot of work to get out of that imprinting, right? And many people can't. They're not capable, right? They come to this country and they'll stay Chinese or Russian or whatever, and they continue teaching their children old whatever, and they say no, right? So these children, Yemenite children, know entire Torah. They used to learn the entire Torah by heart. We used to we had the Yemenite guy, Kippas Ruga, came to the neighborhood in Kew Gardens. He comes to shul, Sephardi shul, the Shari Tova, comes to Shari Tova. And they said, oh, new person, new guest, Sefer Torah, please get an aliyah for Sefer Torah. The guy says, can I read? Sure. Give him a thing. He reads. He looks like the guy that just ran out of Israel, Kibbutz Ruga, nothing rabbinic about him or anything. But from childhood, he learned how to knew the entire Torah by heart. Now, that's what you can do successfully, right? If you want somebody to be educated that way. But we have in general, we have the mitzvah. The last thing is the Shema that we say. Every day we say in the Shema, the Psukim, these things should be on your heart. You imprinting, you're putting something, embedding in your heart. You become embedded with certain message. And then you have to do this for your children. You have to pass it on. You have to teach it. Veshinantam doesn't mean teach. Shinantam Mishnah. You have to keep repeating it. Right? Afilu kulanu chachamim kulanu nevanim kulanu mitzvah lo nisaper b'yitziat Mitzrayim. Even if we're all wise, we have to talk about Yitziat Mitzrayim to our children. You have to keep repeating it so everybody knows from the childhood all the occurrences, everything that God has done for us, because it's essential to our understanding. Bam, in them. Bam, right? In all circumstances. In your house, outside of your house, right? Not what Mendelssohn said, be a Jew in your house, but a human being outside. Right? The Adam bebetecha, the Yehudi bebetecha, or Ben Adam betzetecha. Right? Which was the beginning of the reform, and said, okay, I put on a nice jacket and a tie, and the less I look Jewish, more I cut off my nose, my last name, the better, right? And there's still people in Orthodox community, people that say, I don't wear my religion on my sleeve. I've met people say, no,